of today's daf only is Nedarim daf Mem Test Nedarim 49. So let us start at the top of Mem Test Amid Aleph, the top of the Mishnah. No derm and mavushal. If somebody says, I'm taking a vow that I'm not going to eat anything that is mavushal, which typically is translated as cooked, motor bitzli uvishaluk. So that person is going to be allowed to eat roasted and shalok food because shalok is different than mavushal. What is shalok? Typically throughout the Shas, shalok means boiled properly. And that's how the Mefarish explains it. He says shalok means mavushal yoser midai. It's boiled excessively, heavily boiled. But Ron disagrees. He says because if a person says, I'm not going to eat anything that's cooked, they usually have in mind, by Nedarim, we go after the way people, Lashon B'nai Adam, the way people speak, they usually have in mind something that's cooked. So it must be that it means that it's not cooked. That's what the Ran says, that it's undercooked. So therefore, if you take a vow against Mufushal, you're allowed to eat roasted and shalok. Amar konim tavshil she'eni toim. Let's say a person says, takes a vow that he's not going to taste a tafshil. Also, remaisa kedera rach. That is understood. That formulation is meant to include something that's cooked in the pot, but it's still liquidy. Umutar ba'ava, but it's permitted in something that's cooked in the pot that's thick. Umutar b'beitza tormuta u'bedalah saramutza, and they're allowed to eat. It's not included in maisa kedera. Tonim Tavshil is allowed to eat an egg that's a Turmuta egg. We'll see what the Gemara says about that. Not today, but in the future, in the coming days, and also about a Dalas Haramutza, and also about a gourd that is Ramutza. We'll see what the Gemara says about that. I know that Rimaisa Kedera, somebody takes a vow against anything that's cooked in the pot, Ein Asar Ela Mimaisa Rosafta. Such a person takes a vow against anything cooked in the pot, he's only going to be prohibited against something that boils, that gets boiling hot, like a like sauce that you need to cook a lot in the pot. But if he says, I take a vow against anything that goes down into the pot, She'eni toim, I'm not going to taste it. Asher b'kol mispashim mikter. Then it's prohibited in anything that's tasted that's cooked in the pot at all. So the Gemara challenges the Bryce. The Gemara brings a Bryce. Tanya Rabbi Oshaya Oser. So even though we said in our Mishnah that if you take a vow against anything cooked, you're allowed the roasted and the cooked food, and the roasted and the shalok, which we said was undercooked, according to the Ran, or overcooked, according to Mefarish. Rabbi Yeshaya says in the Brisa Oser, he says even the tzli and the shalak are going to be prohibited; they're not permitted. He says even though I don't have a clear proof from the Torah, I have a hint to it because it says in Divrei Hayamim, "Vayivashu Pesach," they cooked the Pesach ba'esh kamishpat. They cooked the Korban Pesach in the fire according to the law. And we know the Korban Pesach is supposed to be roasted. So we see from here that the word bishul includes roasted. And that's why Rabbi Yoshaya prohibits it. So Gemara says, well, let's say that the machlokas between the Tanakama of our Mishnah and Rabbi Yoshaya has to do with the following dispute. The Rabbi Yoshaya says, let's follow what the Torah says. How the Torah defines words, and according to the Torah, bishul is tzli. Vitana dilan savar, whereas the author of our Mishnah is on the position Nedarim halach achar Lashon B'nai Adam, and whereas the author of our Mishnah says that by vows we follow the way people speak, and the way people speak is that mevushal does not include roasted. The Gemara says no. That's not the dispute. Everybody says that when it comes to a vow, how we understand the words is how people use it at that time and not how it's recorded in the Torah from years ago. But the difference between Tanakh and Rabbi Yoshaya is they lived in different places. Ba'as with the Tana Dilan, in the place where the author of our Mishnah lived, with Sli, Karaway, Sli, or Mavushal, Karaway, Mavushal. They called roasted Sli and they called cooked Mavushal. But Ba'as with Rabbi Yoshaya, in the place where Rabbi Yoshaya lived, Afilu Sli, Karaway, Mavushal. They called Sli also Mavushal. So, Gemara says, but how can you say that that's a dispute? That at the place of Rabbi Yoshaya, they called something roasted, they called it Mavushal. Vaha Krana Sifra. He cites a pasuk and says that it's based upon a verse. So the Gemara says, Asmachta Ba'am. That pasuk is not meant as a proof text, it's meant as only as a support. Says the Gemara, Kohen Tavshil, that if a person takes the vow and says, I'm not going to eat anything that is cooked, then he's going to be prohibited in Ma'aseh Kedei Rach. He's prohibited in the liquidy things that are cooked on the pot, but he is going to be permitted in the thick things. So Gemara says, why is he allowed? Why is he allowed to eat things that are cooked on the pot that are very thick? Didn't he take a vow against anything that's cooked? Because the author of our Mishnah says, what's called a tavshil? Anything which you could dip bread in it. And since if something is liquidy, you could dip bread in it, that's going to be included in the vow. But something that's thick, you don't dip the bread in something that's thick. You're not going to dip a pita bread in a potato kugel. So therefore, for that reason, it's not going to be called a tavshil. Vatanya, and the support for this idea is found in the following brisa. Vatanya here is binichusa, it's support. Hanoder mina tavshil, someone takes a vow against any cooked food. Asr b'kol minei tavshil, it's prohibited to eat cooked foods. V'asr b'tzli u'b'shalok. Umavusho is not allowed to eat the roasted, the shalok umavusho. Those are included in it. But also the tirios rakos, shachol and ochon b'hem pitin, and it's prohibited to eat the hitirios rakos. These are the small squashes that sick people eat that dip their bread in them. So we see from here that if something is like a squash, it's soft, that the sick people dip their bread in it, that is a liquidy item. Therefore, it is not able to be eaten with, it's a tavshil. And so therefore, somebody who takes a vow against tavshil can't eat it. We see from here that what's the definition of a tavshil? Something that is soft, because that's what something that you could dip bread in it. Gemara says, first of all, is it really the case that sick people dip their bread in squash and it's healthy? She got sick. There's a doctor went to heal him. He saw that there was a squash in his house lying there. Shav gave enough, like he ran out. He said, the angel of death is sitting there in this house, and you want me to go up and heal there? I can't do it. I'm surrounded by this squash, which is very, very bad for sick people. So we see from here that squash is not good for sick people. So why did that price say it was good for sick people? This is no longer anything to do with vows. This is about whether or not the price is accurate. So Gemara answers, Lo kasha, Abra Kiki Abba Shumi. What the hell? There's a difference if it's a soft squash, then it's good for you. Where if it's a shune, if it's a hard squash, it's no good. He says no. If it's not 100% clear that this is contradicting the earlier answer, because you could read them as actually complementary. But Rabbi Bar Ua says if it refers to one refers to the outer part of the squash, which is hard, the shell, and the other part refers to that which is in it, which is good for you. Rabbi Yehuda Luliba Dekara that which is in the inside part of the gourd, bisilka. You should cook it with leeks. The inside part of the flax, you should cook with kutach. Kutach is this food that's made out of moldy bread, and like the whey of the milk. It was a staple of their diet. The dovers are also Omer with Ne'amaretz, and you're not allowed to eat this. You're not allowed to say this in front of an Amaretz because we don't want him to rip up the flax plant in order to get the inside to put into the kutach to eat it. That's how the Ran says that you're not allowed to say it from the Amaretz. The Mefarish explained Mishum the davar me'uhu or refuah, because it's something that will help the Amaretz get better. We don't want to help him. And a different explanation by the Mefarish is that if we tell them they're going to eat too much of it and they're going to destroy our flax. So now that we mentioned squash, whether or not it's good for sick people, we go on a little bit of a tangent about who are the sick people that they're referring to. So Rava Amar Man Cholan, who are these sick people? Who are these sick people? They are the Rabbanan. These are the rabbis. And the Ran, it reads like this. He says, yes, indeed, that it's a different answer. He's saying, yes, you know what? Squash is bad for you, even if it's soft. But when we say that the sick people can eat it, that's not the actually sick people. These are the rabbis, that even the ones who are called healthy are called teshushe koach. They're called weak in strength, because the Torah diminishes their strength. Torah diminishes the strength. Why does the Torah diminish the strength? Because a person is so focused on Torah study, so then their energy is going to be placed there, and so therefore they're more vulnerable in other areas of life because they have a singular focus on the Torah study. And Rava Latame, Rava follows his logic. The Amar Rava, Kiman Matzlinan, like whom do we pray today? The whole year, Al Ketzire V'Amari. When we pray for Rofei Cholei Amo Yisrael, we're praying for the sick and the Marie, the Mefarish explains that this refers to Pleitas Ofrei and the scholars. Kamak Rabbi Yossi, it's like Rabbi Yossi who says you have to pray every single day. The Amar Ketziri Marie, from the fact that it says the sick and the Marie, Shmamina Ketzire Mamish. The Ketziri refers to actual sick people, and Marie refers to the Marie de Rabbanan. That refers to the rabbis. The rabbis are not actually sick, but they're just considered weaker because they study Torah so much. The Torah weakens them. Now, how do we know that the Torah makes you weak? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us that the Torah is called Toshiyah because it is mateshes. It weakens the power of a person. And Rabbeinu Yehuda explains that the reason why rabbis are not strong is because they eat a little bit and they sleep a little bit. But we know that the Rambam says we're supposed to be in good health. We have to take care of our bodies. And so therefore, it's very important to exercise. So I'm going to give a plug to everybody to take care of our bodies, to exercise, I personally jog. Everybody has to make sure to say, oh no, I don't want to take care of myself. It doesn't matter. I'm a rabbi. I'm studying Torah. I don't want to be in physical shape. No, we have to. Hashem gave us this body to protect. We have to guard it. And we know the story from Reish Lakish in the Gemara in Reish Lakish, the Gemara in Bamitzia Peidal, that Reish Lakish, that once he accepted upon himself the yoke of Torah, even though he didn't even start to learn, he lost some strength and he wasn't able to jump back over the river. So back to the Gemara, it says Mutar Ba'ava. Somebody who does this is permitted. Somebody who takes a vow against the tavshil is permitted to eat a thick food. Masnisin to look about why. So because we're saying that a tafshil is not something that you dip. A thick food is not something you dip in bread. And if you prohibit yourself a tafshil, that's only prohibiting yourself something that you would dip the bread in. And if it's thick, you wouldn't dip the bread into it. So our Mishnah is not like the Babylonians. These foolish Babylonians, the Babylonians were foolish. They used to eat the bread in the bread. The Amar, when we had this in Beitza, I think it's in Nahama ben Nahama. Amar Rav Chisda, the Ma'ashel Lahon, Lahalan Nakti de Hutzal. He said, go ask those people, those fine people from Hutzal, that they're foodies, the foodies of Hutzal. Say, Hadin Daisa, this porridge, Hechan Ma'al Mechla. What's the proper way to eat it? Techiti Belachma. Do you eat wheat porridge with wheat bread or barley porridge with barley bread? Or maybe you eat the wheat porridge with the barley bread and the barley porridge with the white bread, with the wheat bread. So what's the answer? Rava achay bechasisi. Rava ate. Rava ate the daisa, Rava ate the porridge, or he would dip his bread with the porridge that was made from chasisi. The Ran tells us what's chasisi. Chasisi is kemach shel kilayos. This is flour that was made from kilayot, that was made from the roasted or toasted grain. Rav bar Rafuna, Rafuna, he found his father, Rav bar Rafuna found his father, Rafuna, is eating this porridge with his fingers. Why are you eating with your fingers? He says, porridge with your fingers is sweet. It's even sweeter with 2 and even sweeter with 3. So Rav says to his son Chia, that if they invite you to eat daisa, then you should go ad parsa. They should take you all the way up until a parsa. That's how far you should walk to eat the daisa. It could either be saying like this is a good meal, that's how far you should walk, or it could be if you walk more than that, you're going to lose the yatzas char b'avseda. You're going to lose all the energy you want to get the food. If they the Torah, if they invite you to eat the ox, the meat of an ox, to us a parson, walk up to 3 parsons. He says, if you have any food, don't spit on the ground in front of your teacher. It's disrespectful. With the exception of these gourds or this daisa, this porridge, they're like a lead wick, very bad for your stomach. Even if you're in front of King Shabor, you could spit it out. One ate the daisa with his fingers, and one ate it with a bark of a tree. With the bark of a tree. But they were both eating from the same bowl. So the one who was eating it with his barks, that's the one who was eating with his fingers. You're feeding me your feces because you're using your hands, which are dirty, and you're sticking them in my bowl. So the one who was eating with his fingers, that's the one who was eating with his bark. You're giving me your saliva is all over your bark, and you're sticking it into my bowl. You're double dipping. And they brought in front of him the busfaya. Rod says it's a type of figs, but it's very hard to digest. Rabbi Yehuda ate it, but not Rabbi Shimon. My time, why did you not eat it? So Rabbi Shimon responded to him, I am kol ikar. He says to Rabbi Shimon, because these things never leave your stomach. These figs, they're very hard to digest. So Rabbi Yehuda responds to Rabbi Shimon, if it never leaves your stomach, it's perfect. We'll eat it. It'll carry us over through till tomorrow. We won't have to eat again. Rabbi Yehuda was sitting there in front of Rabbi Tarfon and says, "Wow, your face is shining bright." He said, "You know why? Yesterday, what happened was your servants brought us out to the field and they brought us beets and we ate them without any salt. And if we would have eaten them with salt, wow, and we would be even brighter." So that there was a woman who was a noble woman, not Jewish. She said to Rabbi Yehuda, Mora v'Ravi. So she said to him, "Wow, you're such a teacher of Torah, but you're drunk. And how can you give teachings of Torah when you're drunk?" Because she saw that his face was bright from, and for this reason she thought he was drunk. Amar La, he said to her, "Imanusa biyada dahi isasa." So he swears, "I swear by this woman Itaimna that I don't taste anything. I don't drink wine. He says the only thing I drink is Kiddush, Avdallah, and the 4 cups of Pesach. And when I drink the 4 cups from Pesach, my head hurts. I got a bad headache from Pesach until Shavuos. But so why am I shining brightly? The wisdom illuminates the face. So now we have, by the way, a contradiction. We just said earlier in the daf that Torah makes you weak, but it also makes you shine brightly. So it makes you basically physically weak, but spiritually a giant. That's spiritually bright. So Amalei Ahud Saduki or Rabbi Yehuda Panecha Domin, he says that your face is similar to Ikemalve Ribis Ikemegal Chazirin. You're like somebody who lends money at interest, or like somebody who raises pigs. Amalei Biyudai Travayo Asir, and he says, "No way, I can't do it. By a Jew, both of these things are prohibited. So there's no way I'm doing that." Ella Esrim Arba Basic Kise Islim and Beta Be Madrasha. I have 24 bathrooms set up from my house to the base medrash. And I go to one of them all the time. And so therefore my face is, I always check myself and I make sure that I don't need to go to the bathroom. And so therefore, that's why I'm in a good mood, because I don't have to play games with my stomach. Rabbi Yehuda kad azol be midrasha, when Rabbi Yehuda was going to the base medrash, shakil golfal kisvei, he took a bucket and he put it, or not a bucket, really a jug, and he put it on his shoulder. Amar Gedolah Malach Hashem Mechabedes Tispawa. He says, "This is great work because it gives me honor, because now I could sit on the jar." Rabbi Shimon Shakil Sana Al Kasva, Rabbi Shimon took a basket on his shoulder, and he said, "Gedolah Malach Hashem Mechabedes Tispawa." He says, "So great is the work, it makes its master." Gives a master honor. So to Rabbi Yehuda Nafkas Imra. So Rabbi Yehuda's wife, she went out and she took her cloak. Nafkas Imra. She took some wool of the glima to Hutvi, and she made a cloak. That was very distinguished. Glima to Hutvi. That's what the Ran says, that it was a Klima Chashuva, very distinguished cloak. Kanafkas Ashuka Mechsaybe. When she went out to the market, she wore it. The Kanafik Rabbi Yehuda Utzluya, and when Rabbi Yehuda went out to pray, he also wore it. He would wear it in Davin. And when he would put it on, Avin Levarach Baruch Shatani Me'il. And when he put it on, he would say, "Blessing that I'm wearing this Me'il." Some question, how could he be wearing a woman's garment? So it must have been a unisex garment. A man is not allowed to dress like a woman, but he is allowed to wear a garment that both men and women wear if it's not a specifically woman's garment. So that must have been what's going on here. It wasn't a specifically woman's garment. Zim nechadach gazara Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Tanisa. So one time Rabbi Shimon Gamliel made a fast day. Rabbi Yehuda also a Beit Tanisa. But Rabbi Yehuda didn't show up to the fast day. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said to him, I'm away. Well, Islay Kisuya. So they said to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the reason why he didn't come is because he doesn't have any clothing to wear. Well, Islay Kisuya. He doesn't have any clothing. So Shadar, like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, I'll take care of you. He sent him a grima, he sent him a coat, a little kivel. And Rabbi Yehuda didn't accept it. Why? Dalit Sifte, or on top of Nedarim and Alf, he was sitting on a mat, and where he was sitting, and he lifts up his mat. He says to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's agent, look, Chazi Ma'ika, look what I have here. He says, and he showed him a lot of money. The Ran says it was Maisa Nisim. It was a miracle happened. He says, but I don't want to benefit in this world. I'm going to make do with my wife's coat. I don't need to start spending my money on fancy coats. All right, this is a beautiful dap, and we'll stop here.